Hey guys, tonight we saddle up for a dusty detour into cowboy country, not the Hollywood kind, but the chafing, bone tired. Why is there a scorpion in my boot reality of the Old West? You're not Clint Eastwood out here. You are more like, well, you, but with worse shoes and absolutely no health insurance. You're on a trail drive somewhere between Texas and nowhere, the sky a blistering white, the sun hanging like a punishment above you. Your mouth is dry. Not just, I need water dry, but I can feel the skin in my throat cracking like old parchment, dry. Dust kicks up with every hoofbeat, swirling into your face, into your ears, into places you'd forgotten existed. It tastes like desperation. You blink, but the grit sticks to your eyeballs. Every time you breathe, you inhale the earthy perfume of cow manure, sun-baked sweat, and the faint whiff of your own slowly decaying boots. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Drop it in the comments below. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're on the job. The great American cowboy. Only you're not herding wild mustangs with a majestic view of purple mountains. You're trailing behind a stubborn line of cattle that move as slow as molasses and smell significantly worse. You nudge your worn-out pony with your knees, but even is tired of this. His ears twitch back, clearly judging you. No one told you the American West was mostly flat, beige, and full of things that want to sting, stab, or suffocate you. And that's before you get to the bandits. For now, it's just the heat. It's not power sits punishing. Your shirt clings to you, soaked in sweat and dust, as you squint at the shimmering horizon. There's no escape from the sun, unless you count the occasional scraggly mesquite tree that offers the exact amount of shade to cover maybe your left boot. You're not alone. Of course. There's the cook cookie. Everyone calls him rattling along in a beat-up chuck wagon, full of beans and dry humor. The trail boss shouts orders with a voice like gravel. He's been at it for 30 years, and looks like he's halfway turned into jerky. The other cowboys aren't much better. Some are friendly, some are just tired, and one or two might be plotting to steal your horse while you sleep. It's a lovely social circle. And then there's the cattle. Hundreds of them. Mooing, lowing, wandering off when you turn your back. You spend more time staring at cow butts than you do seeing the actual trail. Historians still argue whether the open range was a noble experiment in freedom or just a moving disaster of livestock and underpaid men. You're starting to lean toward moving disaster. Here's a fun tidbit. Cowboys didn't really say howdy all the time. More often, they muttered curses under their breath or just grunted at each other. The iconic cowboy drawl. That's what happens when your tongue is coated in trail dust and your jaw's too tired to move. You reach down and adjust your bandana. It's not for style. It's so you don't choke on airborne cow droppings. The dust is everywhere. You try to spit, but your mouth's too dry. Your tongue feels like leather. Your lips are cracked. Sunscreen has been invented yet. So you're roasting. One old trick is to smear axle grease on your face to block the sun. Another involves crocodile dung. If you want to get real frontier fancy. Neither works particularly well or smells any better. Midday hits, and you get a 10-minute break to water the horses and pretend your legs aren't on fire. You sit on a rock, hoping it's not a rattlesnake in disguise, and glance around. There's nothing but waving heat, distant mesas, and more cows. You chew on a piece of jerky so tough it might actually be shoe leather. You're beginning to suspect Cookie is repurposing old saddlebags. Everywhere around you, the land whispers promises of beauty and freedom, but only if you survive long enough to enjoy them. And that's the trick, isn't it? survival. You don't have backup. There are no radios, no ambulances. If you fall off your horse and break something, the only treatment is don't fall off next time. The Old West wasn't just wild, it was indifferent. You're not the hero of this story. You're a background extra in a very long cattle drive. As you ride on, your thighs scream from the saddle. Your spine jars with every trot, and you try not to think about how long it's been since you last bathed. Days, weeks. You can't smell yourself anymore, but the horses sure can. They keep a polite distance. You finally reach a shallow creek and get 5 glorious minutes to splash lukewarm water on your face. It smells faintly of algae and dead fish, but it's wet and vaguely life-affirming. You wash your hands, which are permanently stained with dirt and rope burn. You look up to see a buzzard circling overhead. You wave at it, just to let it know you're not dead yet. Not today, buddy. In the distance, a thunderhead looms. There'll be a whole different problem. But you're not there yet. For now, it's back in the saddle, back into the dust, and back into the rhythmic clop, clop, clop of hooves on parched ground. Someone sneezes beside you. Another cowboy grumbles, "Don't waste the moisture." You almost laugh. The sun starts to lower in the sky, but don't get too excited. It only means the air gets marginally cooler while the bugs get significantly braver. You've been riding for hours, your thighs chafed, your lower back one jolt away from permanent retirement, and worst of all, you're starving. Not craving a snack hungry, but I'd chew on a saddle strap if it didn't belong to my horse levels of desperate. So, it's time for dinner. You and the other cowboys gather around Cookie's chuck wagon, a rickety wooden cart that somehow manages to be the most important structure in this part of the world. It's a moving pantry, kitchen, and therapy office all in one. Cookie's been parked here since late afternoon, grumbling over a soot-stained pot and tossing beans into it like he's angry at legumes in general. He ladles a scoop into your tin plate. It jiggles. That's not a good sign for beans. The color is somewhere between rust and mud. The smell as well. Let's say it's protein adjacent. You sit on an overturned bucket and dig in. There's nothing else to eat. The first bite is hot, mushy, and oddly sweet. You chew slowly, not out of enjoyment, but because the occasional grit makes you suspect there's a pebble or two in there for texture. You try not to ask what meat this is if there's meat at all. Historians still debate whether cowboys regularly ate the livestock they were herding, or if it was mostly just beans. Beans, and more beans. The consensus? Only if a cow dropped dead. Otherwise, beef was for selling, not for snacking. And you? You're not rich enough to eat what you're guarding. As you chew, another cowboy leans over and says, "If you find something crunchy, spit it out, it's probably a beetle." He's not joking. You find yourself chewing more carefully, like you're mining for gold with your molars. And you better enjoy it, because guess what's on the menu tomorrow? That's right. Beans. Again. You will eat them in the morning, mashed with a hard biscuit. At lunch, cold from a tin. At dinner, warmed over a fire if you're lucky. They're high in protein and misery. You wonder if you'll ever poop normally again. Sometimes, you get lucky and there's bacon, or rather, salt pork so tough it squeaks when you bite it. It comes in slabs and tastes mostly of salt and pig regrets. Once in a while, Cookie finds a squirrel or a jackrabbit, and everyone gets excited. But there are 10 of you and 1 rabbit. You do the math. As the meal settles, you sit back, stomach groaning, and the campfire crackles softly. Someone pulls out a harmonica and plays a song that's technically music, though your ears might disagree. The flames cast long shadows across tired faces. This is supposed to be the romantic part, the cowboy around the fire, stars above, camaraderie in the air. But honestly, your legs hurt, your teeth are full of bean skins, and your socks smell like something that crawled into a hole and gave up. And yet, there's something kind of hypnotic about it. The stars start blinking out in the sky. You lean back on a saddlebag that's way too lumpy to be called a pillow. Someone tells a joke that doesn't make sense. Someone else snores loudly. You swat at a mosquito the size of a walnut and pull your bandana over your nose. Your boots stay on. Always. You sleep in your clothes. Not out of convenience, but survival. Scorpions love cozy places like the inside of your boot. And taking off your socks would be a war crime against everyone's noses. You stare up at the stars and think about tomorrow. More riding, more cows, more beans, and if you're lucky, not stepping in a cow pie before sunrise. Out here, luxury is a moment without flies in your nose. Oh, and speaking of coffee, because you thought maybe a hot cup would lift your spirits, think again. Cowboy coffee is just grounds boiled in a tin pot over open flame. No filter, no love. It's thick, bitter, and often crunchy. It tastes like betrayal and possibly a burnt tree stump. But it keeps you awake, which is important when the only thing standing between your herd and a stampede is your ability to not doze off. Some cowboys toss in crushed eggshells to settle the grounds. Others don't bother. You learn to chew your coffee like a man chewing the consequences of all his life decisions. And if you're wondering whether any cowboy ever sat down and had a fresh salad out here, please, the last green thing you saw was a cactus, and even that looked dehydrated. For all its trials, there's one fringe upside no one talks about. Eating the same thing over and over saves time. You never have to make decisions. No menu anxiety. Just pick between hot beans and slightly cooler beans. At some point, someone tries to liven up dinner talk with a tale about a haunted canyon or a ghost cow that moves in the night. It's not exactly terrifying, but the wind whistling through the canyons does make weird sounds. You remind yourself it's just the wind. Probably. You burp quietly, taste salt pork again, and lie back. Your belly's full technically, your socks are still damp, your legs still ache, but at least the stars are pretty. And yes, you're already hungry again. The fire burns low now, embers blinking like sleepy eyes. You pull your hat down over your face and try to settle into what could generously be described as sleeping arrangements. It's not a bed, not even a cot, just the dry, uneven ground, blanketed in whatever you had the sense to carry. A saddle blanket, a canvas roll, and your own slowly stiffening limbs. Sleep does not come easy. You shift to your side. A rock jabs your hip. You roll onto your back. Something crunches. You decide not to investigate. The wind picks up and tugs at your coat, slipping cold fingers into your sleeves. This is the part where the romantic cowboy dream really breaks down, because you are now in the middle of nowhere, lying next to a snoring man named Lefty, and listening to what may or may not be coyotes making weird decisions in the distance. And that's when it happens. The unmistakable rattle. You freeze. Somewhere not far from your boots. Something dry and angry hisses out its warning. Rattlesnake. Not a big one by the sound of it. But really, how big does it have to be? You lie still, every nerve awake. Despite the exhaustion grinding into your bones, your breath comes shallow. You consider making a run for it. Then remember you're not exactly in running shape these days. Eventually, the snake gets bored, or cold, or insulted by your scent, and slithers off to menace someone else's sleeping bag. But you're wide awake now, and so is the gnawing truth that out here, every night is a gamble. Historians still argue whether snakebite or fever claimed more lives on the trail, but either way, you're on the guest list. And even if the snakes don't get you, the bugs might. Mosquitoes are one thing, but out here, you've got ants that bite, beetles that burrow, and these tiny little spiders that think your ear canal is a condo. One cowboy swears a tarantula crawled across his chest last night. Another claims he woke up spooning a lizard. You decide not to ask follow-up questions. You doze in 15 minutes here, 20 there. Every strange noise jolts you awake. Is it a cougar? A horse kicking something? Just Cookie coughing up another lungful of bean smoke? You don't know. You never know. Sleep is a patchwork of tension and minor horror. And by the time the sky starts to lighten, your back feels like a bent horseshoe and your brain is soaked in exhaustion. The sunrise would be pretty if your eyes weren't stinging so badly. The landscape turns gold, then red, then that washed out beige again. You groan, stretch, and regret it instantly. Every muscle complains. Your fingers are stiff. Your knees pop. You vaguely remember a time when you didn't wake up feeling like you were hit by a wheelbarrow full of bricks. You reach into your saddlebag for something resembling breakfast, a piece of jerky, a biscuit so hard you could shave with it. You wash it down with what's left of last night's coffee, which now tastes like mud that made a bad decision. The trail boss starts yelling. That's your cue. You saddle up, teeth unbrushed, hair matted, boots still suspiciously full of dust. Your horse looks at you with mild disdain, like he knows how little sleep you got and how little he cares. You ride out. Mid-morning sun is deceptively gentle, but it's only luring you into a false sense of peace before the real heat kicks in. You squint across the prairie, eyes gritty and dry. Somewhere to your left, a jackrabbit dashes by like it has urgent business. You envy its energy, and then it starts again, the never-ending parade of cattle. The lowing, the swaying, the manure. One cow wanders too far. You trot after it, clucking and waving your reins. The cow ignores you, because cows have no respect for you or your personal time. You finally circle around and nudge it back, muttering things your grandmother would not approve of. A newer cowboy, barely 17, still hopeful asks if you slept well. You just look at him. He gets the message. There's no point in complaining. Everyone is tired. Everyone is sore. You think of the stories back east, the dime novels that paint cowboys as dashing heroes, always getting into adventures and rescuing people and occasionally finding buried treasure. If only they could see you now, covered in dust, teeth full of bugs, and trying not to fart in the saddle. And yet, somehow, the work still needs doing. That's the thing about cattle, they don't care if you're tired, or if a snake scared the sleep out of you. They just want to walk in the wrong direction. All day long. One of the old-timers rides up beside you and tells a story about a cowboy who fell asleep in the saddle and stayed upright for 10 miles. You believe it. Your own eyes are trying to shut, and the horse does most of the work anyway. Sometimes you wonder if your horse thinks you're the cargo. But if you do drift off, you risk falling and getting trampled by the herd or waking up in a cactus patch. So instead, you hum a tune or talk to your horse or daydream about a nice bed in a room with actual walls, maybe even a pillow. Is that too much to ask? Fringe fact for the night. Some cowboys swore by sleeping with tobacco plugs in their pockets to ward off snakes. Whether it worked or not, historians are still scratching their heads. You wonder if a full-body tobacco suit might be more effective. Around noon, the sun climbs high again. and you know tonight will be just as restless as the last. Maybe worse. There's talk of a thunderstorm moving in, and nothing says sleep tight like lightning striking in the middle of an open plain while you're wrapped in a damp wool blanket with metal spurs strapped to your feet. So tonight, when you lie down again, you'll once more cross your fingers, tuck your boots close, and hope the only thing crawling on you is the occasional ant. Welcome to the frontier dream where sleep is optional, discomfort is guaranteed, and snakes do not respect personal space. Your legs are jelly, your spine's got more crunch than a breakfast cereal, and your hands, well, they're rope burned, blistered, and vaguely shaped like claws now. But don't get too cozy in your saddle, because you've still got a full day of branding ahead. That's right, branding. The cowpoke rite of passage that sounds cool in theory, but in practice smells like burning hair and makes your forearms scream. You're riding into a makeshift corral, just some rope, logs, and tired men with sticks where the herd's been wrangled for branding. The air is thick with dust and bovine panic. Calves are bawling, mothers are stomping, and you're pretty sure someone already got kicked in the chin and won't be chewing solid food for a while. Your job? Grab a squirming, angry calf, wrestle it to the ground, and pin it long enough for someone to press a red-hot iron into its hide. Sounds fun, right? You dismount with a grunt. Your boots hit the ground like anvils. Every joint cracks. You stretch once, immediately regret it, and roll up your sleeves. The branding iron rests in the coals, glowing orange like it knows it's about to ruin someone's day. Don't let 'em get behind you, an older cowboy grumbles, gripping a lasso with the ease of a man who's dislocated more joints than you've got hats. You nod, and just like that, the fun begins. The calf lunges, and you grab a leg only to realize calves are like toddlers with hooves and jet fuel. It bucks, kicks, and squeals like you're stealing its birthday cake. You manage to flip it, pin its legs, and hold tight while your arms tremble from the effort. Someone steps in with the iron. There's a hiss, a puff of smoke, and the calf bellows in outrage. The smell hits you next, burnt hair, hot flesh, a stink so sharp it feels like it's lodging in your throat. It's awful. There's no getting used to it. You let the calf up, and it bolts away with a furious moo, now officially part of the ranch's inventory. Branding is brutal, but it's necessary. Historians still argue whether cowboys relished the task as part of their rugged identity, or simply tolerated it because someone had to. Either way, it leaves you exhausted and slightly nauseous. By midday, your shirt is glued to your back with sweat. Your fingers are swollen, your palms cut and bruised. You've tackled 5 calves, 2 of which tried to climb you like a tree. One somehow kicked itself free and ran off with your glove. You decide not to chase it. A quick break means slumping in the shade of the chuck wagon, slurping tepid water from a dented canteen, and realizing your arms are visibly shaking. Cookie offers you a half biscuit, and you accept like it's a gourmet offering. It's dry enough to rehydrate in your mouth before you can swallow. There's not much chatter during branding. Everyone's too busy surviving. Occasionally, someone hollers when a calf wriggles free, or a rope slips, or a knee pops out of place. You don't make eye contact during those moments. You just hope it's not your turn next. And then there's the branding iron itself. It's deceptively simple. Just a metal rod with a design welded to the end. Could be letters, could be symbols, but when it's red hot, it might as well be a flaming trident. You handle it with the same reverence you'd give a wild raccoon. Cautiously and with plenty of yelling involved. By afternoon, your arms feel like boiled noodles. Every time you crouch down, your thighs scream in betrayal. Your knees buckle when you stand. But you keep going because stopping means you'll fall behind, and falling behind means more work later. Or worse, getting assigned manure duty. Not that it's much better than this. Some days, you wish all you had to do was shovel something. At least manure doesn't kick you in the ribs and squeal in your face. You wipe your forehead with a filthy bandana, take a swig of gritty coffee, and glance at your horse, who looks positively smug over there doing absolutely nothing. Horses don't brand. They just watch, judgingly. Speaking of your horse, his name is probably something endearing like Buck or Dusty, though you've been calling him you devil since the second day when he tossed you into a sagebrush. Your relationship is complex. He tolerates you so long as you don't make too many requests. Back in the corral, things are winding down. You've got maybe a dozen calves left. Your shirt's torn at the sleeve. You're bleeding somewhere, you're just not sure where yet. And your hat has become more sweat than felt. A young calf slips the lasso and makes a break for it. You're closest, so you charge. You trip, land hard, and taste dust. But you catch its back leg with one hand and hang on like your dinner depends on it. It kicks. You slide. And now you're both covered in dirt, snorting and deeply offended. You finally pin it, and the others catch up. Nice one. Someone says. You nod, or maybe pass out briefly, hard to tell. By sundown, it's over. The last brand hisses. The final calf bolts. And everyone sags in place like half-inflated balloons. You wash your hands in a bucket of water that instantly turns brown. Your arms ache. Your back is stiff. And there's grit in your teeth that may never leave. Fringe fact for your aching brain. Some cowboys rubbed horse liniment on sore muscles. It was meant for animals. It contained camphor, alcohol, and a vague sense of danger. But you'll try anything at this point. As you collapse beside the fire that night, stomach rumbling for something besides beans, your body feels 10 years older than it did this morning. You pull your blanket over your chest and hope tonight's dreams involve fewer calves, less kicking, and at least one pillow. Just one. You wake up stiff as a fence post and twice as brittle. The branding's over, but your body hasn't gotten the memo. Your right shoulder won't lift above your chest. Your fingers barely curl, and you're walking like you borrowed someone else's legs, someone significantly older and recently trampled. But none of that matters, because today's agenda is another of the Cowboys' greatest hits. Cleaning up, frontier style. Now, let's manage expectations here. When we say shower, what we actually mean is a half-filled bucket and a hope for decency. Hygiene in the Old West is not glamorous. It's not even functional. It's just barely happening. You follow a trickling stream behind a rocky outcrop, your so-called bathhouse. A bent tin basin waits there, next to a bar of soap that's more sliver than bar and smells like expired bacon. You peel off your shirt, which now resembles something an archaeologist would unearth, and take inventory of your injuries. Scratches, bruises, and a sunburn in the shape of your bandana. You're a walking cautionary tale. You dunk a rag into the water and wring it over your head. It's ice cold. Your brain forgets how to breathe for a second. You scrub your arms, your face, your neck, and for a brave moment, your feet, immediately regretting that decision when the chill reaches your toes and your boots refuse to go back on without a fight. Still, it feels good to be vaguely cleaner. You can almost imagine you smell like something other than dust and cow. Almost. Historians still argue whether cowboys cared much about cleanliness. Diaries and letters suggest many didn't bathe regularly, not because they didn't want to, but because water, soap, and privacy were rare luxuries. So, you do what you can. You rinse, scrape, and splash, and then you put on the same crusty clothes you had yesterday, because those are the only clothes you have. Some cowboys carried a sweat scroper, a curved blade used on horses to remove sweat, which they also used on themselves. You briefly consider trying it, but decide to keep some mystery between yourself and the tool. Back at camp, Cookie's boiling something that smells like it used to be a vegetable. Maybe you sip coffee that tastes less like beans and more like burnt twigs. Breakfast is the usual: biscuits chipped straight off a rock. Maybe a strip of bacon if it's payday. You chew slowly, trying not to crack a molar. Then it's laundry time, another exciting frontier pastime. You trudge back to the creek, shirt in hand, and start pounding it against a rock. No detergent, just willpower and water. You scrub until your knuckles ache. The shirt is technically cleaner afterward, though it still holds enough dust to qualify as its own trail. You hang it on a tree branch, where it stiffens in the breeze like it's been taxidermied. It'll be dry in 10 minutes, then ready to get filthy all over again. That's the cycle: ride, sweat, scrape, repeat. Let's talk undergarments specifically, the long johns. You've been wearing them nonstop, and they've reached a level of stiffness that defies nature. Taking them off is like peeling an orange made of cardboard. Some cowboys went weeks without changing them. Others swore by the 2-pair system and on, one drying. You? You're just hoping they don't walk off on their own. And don't ask about socks. You stopped thinking about socks after day 3. Whatever lives inside them now deserves privacy. With personal hygiene out of the way, loosely speaking, you turn your attention to gear. Your saddle's got a tear, your stirrups squeaky. You oil your boots with bear grease, because why not? It's better than dry rot. You check your spurs, tighten your saddle straps, and hope your canteen doesn't leak like it did yesterday. Maintenance is life out here. If your gear fails, you fail. If your saddle splits in the middle of a cattle chase, you're not just embarrassed, you're possibly injured, and definitely mocked forever. You inspect your hat. It's bent, frayed, and smells like everything you've ever ridden through, but it keeps the sun off your ears and the rain out of your eyes. Some cowboys believed in steaming their hats into shape over the campfire. You tried that once. It almost caught fire. So now it's permanently misshapen, which you call character. Around noon, you get a surprise. The cook announces there's a bath available in a nearby hot spring. It's 10 miles off trail, but the promise of hot water is enough to spark a stampede of cowboys. You ride there in a dusty line, each man more hopeful than the last. And when you finally arrive, bliss, steam rising, warm water lapping at your aching limbs, you strip down, slip in, and feel your soul return to your body in slow, bubbly increments. You soak, float, and even smile for a moment. The grime peels off in clouds. It's magic. But the moment doesn't last. 10 minutes later, someone's singing loudly off key. Another cowboy cannonballs into the spring. Someone throws a biscuit. The spell breaks, and you climb out. Cleaner, but still exhausted. On the way back, the sun dips low, painting the sky in orange and pink. It would be beautiful if your skin didn't feel like it was about to peel off. You pull your collar up against the wind and ride silently. Night falls, campfires flicker. You crawl into your blanket roll, cleaner than usual, but no less sore. You scratch an old mosquito bite. Something rustles in the grass nearby, but you don't have the strength to care. Maybe tomorrow you'll have a good day. Maybe you won't fall off your horse. Maybe your socks will behave. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll find another hot spring and stay there forever. You think after a full day of riding, wrestling calves, and bathing in lukewarm pond soup, you'd be allowed a peaceful evening. But the West laughs in the face of relaxation, because tonight, just when you're drifting into that precious first layer of unconsciousness, you hear it, a sound, not just any sound, a low rumble, a building vibration. You sit up, instantly alert despite your sore everything. Stampede. It starts as a tremor. Then the ground begins to shake, not dramatically, but enough to make the coffee pot rattle and your spine say, I told you we should have become a tailor. A few seconds later, the cattle are thundering hundreds of hooves, pounding the dirt, grunting, panicking, running from who knows what. You scramble out of your bedroll in the dark, boots half on, hat flying off somewhere. You grab your lasso and swing onto your horse like it owes you an explanation. Your heart is doing a double-time jig, and your horse is just as nervous as you are. You try to steer, but he's already trying to outrun the stampede that's coming from behind, beside, and everywhere. Here's the cruel truth. Cows spook easily. A clap of thunder, a flash of lightning, even the flap of a saddle blanket can send them into chaos. Historians still argue what caused the deadliest stampedes. Some say wolves, others blame lightning, or even cowboys snoring too loud. No one agrees. All you know is, it's happening, and you're in it. You shout, you wave your hat, you try to turn the herd right along the front and angle inward, hoping to push them into a circle before they run themselves to death. It's a classic technique called milling, and it works about 30% of the time. The rest of the time, you get trampled or cry or both. One cow nearly clips your horse, sending you into a lurch. You recover barely. Dust flies in all directions. You can't see more than a few feet ahead. Just silhouettes and terror. Someone is yelling to your left. Someone else is yelling behind you. It's unclear who's in charge anymore. You finally get a few of the lead cattle to slow down, then curve back. Like dominoes, the others begin to follow. Slowly, hesitantly, the chaos dulls. The thunder of hooves fades to a rumble, then a shuffle. After what feels like a week, the herd comes to a stop, huffing, stamping, confused but still intact. You, however, are a mess. Your lungs are full of dust. Your heart won't stop thumping. And your horse is eyeing you like, let's not do that again. You ride slowly back to camp in the dark. The stars are out, but you barely notice them. All you can think about is how close that was and how normal it is. Cowboys lived in constant fear of stampedes. It wasn't just the damage to the herd, it was the sheer danger. One wrong move and you're under a wall of hooves. Some cowboys died trying to save cattle they barely knew. Others got thrown from their horses and never seen again. The prairie doesn't leave witnesses. You dismount, legs shaking. Your shirt is damp with sweat, dust clinging to every surface. A few other cowboys sit around the fire, equally rattled. One of them mutters something about those cursed cows. Another spits and says, they've got the devil in them. You chuckle, just a little. Because if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And the worst part? There's no sleep after that. You try, of course you do. You lie down, wrap up, pull your hat over your face, but your mind keeps replaying the chaos. The sound of hooves, the blur of motion, the idea that, had you been 5 feet to the left, you might not be here thinking about it at all. So you lie there, eyes open, staring at the stars, listening to the occasional moo of a disgruntled cow. Your body aches, but your nerves ache more. In the morning, there's a quick head count. Only one calf missing. Not bad. All things considered. The chuck wagon is covered in a thin film of dust. Someone's bedroll has hoofprints on it. His fine just cranky. Cookie makes coffee, because that's the only thing holding this outfit together. As you sip the bitter brew, you hear tales from last night. One guy claims he rode through the herd to save a calf. Another insists he got bucked and ran on foot. You doubt half of it, but you nod anyway. Everyone needs their cowboy story, even if it's patched together with panic and horse sweat. Later, you inspect the cattle. A few limps, a few bruises, but most are fine. Cows are strange that way, panicked one moment, grazing calmly the next, like nothing happened. You aren't so quick to forget. That afternoon, while the herd grazes, you rest under a tree and sharpen your knife knot for show. Just as a habit, you think about home, if you had one. Some cowboys did farms, wives, letters waiting in distant towns. Others didn't. You're somewhere in between. Fringe tidbit of the day, some trail bosses claimed they could prevent stampedes by singing softly to the herd at night. Songs like Bury Me Not on the Lone Prairie or Old Dan Tucker. Whether the cows enjoyed it or were just confused, no one knows. You hum a bit, just to test the theory. As the sun sets again, you prepare for another night one, where the quiet feels like a warning. You tie your horse closer, you sleep with your boots on, and you remind yourself that out here, peace is a temporary visitor. The trail is long, the cows are twitchy, and sleep, once again, is optional. Rewritten to meet 1001 Sparna, 200 words. Dawn rises slow and grudging. Like your body, you're back in the saddle, stiff-legged and bleary-eyed, cradling a sore back and bruised pride from last night's stampede. But don't get too comfortable today. Your fate rests in the hooves of your most judgmental coworker, your horse. Yes, the noble steed, the iconic partner of the cowboy, galloping through legend with dust in its mane and loyalty in its heart. Except your horse doesn't like you, not even a little. He tolerates your presence the way a bartender tolerates a loud regular at closing time. You mount up slowly because your hips are still questioning all your life choices, and your horse flicks his tail with the kind of passive aggression only a long-suffering animal can master. His name is probably something cool sounding like whiskey or comet, but you call him Stubborn because he answers to that more often anyway. His full name, you've decided, is Stubborn, destroyer of routines and hopes. He doesn't trot, he plods. Unless there's something scary ahead, then he becomes a rocket. Sudden rustle in a bush, launch sequence initiated, a snake wiggles across the trail. Boom, 180-degree spin and a sprint that nearly unseats you. He goes from exhausted to Olympic sprinter in 0.3 seconds, just to keep your heart rate interesting. You grab the saddle horn, curse under your breath, and hang on like a rodeo clown with commitment issues. Historians still argue whether cowboys had strong bonds with their horses or just tolerated them like co-workers in a cramped office. Diaries suggest it was a bit of both. Some cowboys named their horses and shared secrets with them around the fire. Others simply kicked and cursed until the horse moved. You personally have tried both. So far, all you've learned is that your horse has a great memory and holds grudges. You nudge Stubborn into a trot as you help drive a few straggling calves back toward the herd. He obeys slowly, with an eye roll if horses could eye roll. You adjust your hat, which promptly tries to fly off in the wind. You grab it just in time and mutter, "We're all just holding on out here." Mid-morning rolls in hot and heavy. Sweat drips down your spine, soaking into the saddle. The smell of leather and horsehair thick in the air. The sun burns from above. Your canteen's half empty, and your horse stops to rub his face against a tree branch for a full 3 minutes while you try to convince him not to nap. Then, of course, comes the bog. It's always the bog. Somewhere along the trail, the ground gets mushy. The herd goes around it. But your horse, bless him, decides this is the perfect moment to test your trust. 3 steps in, and his front legs sink. You panic. He panics. You both do a small, coordinated dance of oh no. You lean forward, trying to coax him back, but he decides to go through the mud. Bold choice. Suddenly you're knee-deep in muck, mud splashing up your legs, your saddle squeaking in protest, and your horse charging forward like he's reenacting a heroic war story. You come out the other side covered in brown slime, half your gear dripping, your pride fully gone. Other cowboys saw it. Of course they did. One offers a polite, slow clap. Another mimics your flailing arms like he's inventing a new dance. You tip your hat, mud and all, and vow revenge. Later, after you stop smelling like a swamp and reassemble your dignity, horses are strange creatures. They'll let you brush them, feed them, talk to them like a diary, and still, the moment something spooks them, they'll yeet you into a patch of cacti without hesitation. It's a delicate partnership based on trust, mild violence, and shared resentment. You stop at a creek to let the horses drink. Yours refuses at first, then plunges his entire nose into the water like it insulted his lineage. You splash some on your face, rinse the worst of the mud off your jeans, and breathe. The world quiets for a moment until a frog jumps. Your horse jerks, and you nearly topple in again. Classic. You're learning that being a cowboy doesn't mean mastering the wild, it means enduring it. Your horse is not your pet, is not your friend, has your equal in suffering, and sometimes your superior in judgment. You try to offer a sugar cube. He sniffs it, then walks away. Rude. Fringe tidbit of the day. Some cowboys swore by whispering to their horses at night, telling them their hopes and dreams. Supposedly, it built trust. You try it once. Your horse yawns in your face, then sneezes directly on your hat. Relationship progress, neutral. By afternoon, you and Stubborn find a rhythm again. Sort of. You're not friends, but you're no longer enemies. He doesn't try to throw you off again, and you stop calling him names under your breath. It's a truce. He even lets you scratch behind his ears for a moment until a bug bites his flank and he kicks backward, nearly swiping your kneecap into next Tuesday. Then, right when you least expect it, a jackrabbit bolts out from the brush. Boom, your horse lurches sideways like, seen a ghost. You hang on by your fingertips, bounce sideways in the saddle, and land in a pose that would be impressive if it wasn't so painful. Somehow, you stay on barely. Once things settle, you look your horse square in the eye and say, "You did that on purpose." He blinks slowly, then turns away, swatting you with his tail. It's mutual disrespect, the bedrock of every cowboy horse bond. Back at camp that evening, someone has the nerve to suggest riding games. Barrel races, roping drills. You decline with a hand motion that says, "My tailbone still remembers Tuesday." Instead, you brush Stubborn down with a curry comb, picking burrs from his mane and flicking sweat from his flanks. He tolerates it, barely. One of the older cowboys comes by, watches you for a moment, then says, "Takes about 6 months to stop wanting to murder your horse. Another 6 before you trust him. Maybe a year before you like him." You nod, unsure where on the timeline you are, somewhere near grudging tolerance. As you settle into your blanket roll, sore from the inside out, You hear your horse chewing contentedly nearby. You wonder if he dreams of greener pastures or just of spooking you into ravines. Probably both. You whisper, "Don't throw me tomorrow." He snorts. Progress. Town. Sweet, filthy, chaotic town. You haven't seen buildings in over 2 weeks. And now, as the dust-covered rooftops peek over the horizon, your sore body practically tingles with anticipation. You imagine a bed, real food, maybe a roof that doesn't blow away in the wind. You even dare to dream of a cold drink in a real glass. But hold on to that fantasy, it's about to shatter like a whiskey bottle in a saloon brawl. You ride in slow, eyes scanning the crooked signs and leaning porches. The town's got a name, but you've forgotten it already. Doesn't matter. They're all the same out here. A few wooden buildings sun-bleached and warped, some hitching posts with horses tied to them, and a road that's mostly just mud and regret. The first thing that hits you is the smell. It's part manure, part whiskey breath, with a twist of unwashed humanity. Someone's pouring out a bucket of something into the street. You don't look too closely. A dog barks from under a wagon, a drunk sings badly to himself in the shade, and two kids are chasing each other barefoot through the dust with sticks. Town, you realize, is just a different kind of chaos. Your first stop is the livery stable. You dismount, stretch your legs with a grimace, and hand your horse off to a stable hand who looks about 12. Give him some oats, you say, and don't let him talk you into a mutiny. The kid nods like that's perfectly normal. Then it's off to the saloon. Now, the saloon is a cowboy's oasis and also a danger zone. The swing doors creak as you push them open. Inside, it's all low light, sticky floors, and heat trapped under the ceiling like bad decisions. A piano plays in the corner, barely in tune. The bartender wipes a glass with a rag that's doing more smearing than cleaning. You walk to the bar and order a drink. The whiskey burns all the way down because it's not really whiskey. It's some mystery mix of grain alcohol and poor life choices, but it's strong, and after a few sips, the knots in your back start to untangle. A little. You eat something they claim is stew. It's brown, vaguely meaty, and alarmingly chewy. You don't ask what it is. You don't want to know. You soak it up with a crust of bread that doubles as a blunt weapon, and for the first time in days, you feel full. Then the trouble starts. It always starts with a game of cards. You're not playing, but you're close enough to hear the rising voices. Someone thinks someone else is cheating. Someone else thinks someone's looking at their cards. Someone else just wants to fight. Chairs scrape, boots stomp, and then glass shatters. A bottle flies, a fist follows. And just like that, the place erupts. You duck instinctively, pressing yourself against the bar as a man crashes into a table next to you. Face first, another guy gets slammed into the piano. The music stops. You think about getting involved. Then you think about your bruised ribs and decide against it. Historians still argue whether the Wild West was truly lawless or just operated on its own chaotic moral code. The truth lies somewhere in between. Some towns had sheriffs. Others had drunken guys with badges. This one appears to have neither, which explains the man now standing on the bar yelling, "I'm the mayor now," before falling backward into a barrel of pickles. Eventually, the brawl fizzles. People groan, bleed, or sleep where they land. The bartender shrugs and starts sweeping broken glass. You finish your drink and head for the general store, hoping to resupply without needing a tetanus shot. The store smells like tobacco, molasses, and damp fabric. You browse the shelves, hardtack, coffee beans, more beans, rope, soap the size of your fist, and a comb that's definitely seen better years. You pick up a few essentials and trade a few coins, silently mourning the loss of your last dollar to what may or may not have been squirrel stew. You consider visiting the bathhouse if this town has one, but the sign out front says hot water extra, and your wallet says no thanks. You settle for rinsing your hands at the pump behind the saloon, where a large man is using the same water source to wash his socks. You both pretend not to notice each other. As the sun lowers, you find a cot at a boarding house. The mattress is lumpy, the room smells like tobacco ghosts, and the pillow crunches when you lay your head down. Still, it's a bed with walls. You could cry from joy if you weren't too tired. But the town never sleeps quietly. Outside, horses clomp past on the road. Someone sings off-key under your window. A gunshot rings out in the distance, probably just a warning shot. Hopefully, you bury your face in the pillow and will yourself to ignore it all. Fringe fact of the night. Some saloons kept their own house rules posted, like no spitting, no guns on the table, and no dogs upstairs. Whether anyone followed them was another story. One saloon reportedly had a sign that read, "Check your six-shooter at the barrow, check your teeth out back. You drift in and out of sleep. The unfamiliar luxury of a mattress almost too much for your body to handle. Your dreams are strange and short floating playing cards, horses in hats, and stew that talks back. In the morning, you wake groggy and sore, not from cattle drives or branding irons, but from sleeping in a bed that somehow made you miss your saddle. You stretch, groan, and check your pockets. 1 coin left. Enough for one last cup of mystery coffee before you head back out to the trail. You saddle up again, your horse surprisingly clean and smug. The town fades behind you, already blurry in your memory, like every other one before it. And now you ride forward, back into the wild, back into the dust, toward the next patch of hard ground you'll call bed. Town was nice for 5 minutes, but out here, comfort is always temporary, and the cows are always waiting. Back on the trail, your town fantasies fade faster than your last cup of watery coffee. The road stretches out in all directions, flat and endless, with nothing but cows, heat, and the occasional tumbleweed with attitude. You've got a belly full of questionable stew, a wallet emptier than a dry creek bed, and a sunburn creeping in where your collar doesn't quite cover your neck. It's a glamorous life. You ride in silence for a while, letting your horse choose the pace, which of course means he plods like he's auditioning for a statue. The herd spreads out behind you, mooing discontentedly, kicking up dust with every lazy step. You cough and wipe your face with a bandana that was clean for about 3 hours after laundry day. Then you feel it again, that dull throb in your jaw. Oh no, it's back. Toothache. At first, you try to ignore it. You pretend it's just tension. Maybe you're clenching your jaw. Maybe you slept funny. But deep down, you know the truth. That molar in the back, it's rebelling. And in the Old West, there's no dentist gently offering numbing gel and a polite pamphlet on flossing. No. There's just pain, whiskey, and either a pair of pliers or a friend with a strong grip. You shift in your saddle, the pain blooming every time your horse takes a step. You tap your jaw. Doesn't help. You try chewing on the other side of your mouth. Also doesn't help. And that's when Cookie rides up beside you, notices your grimace, and offers the most compassionate Old West medical advice. Just pour some whiskey on it. You nod, because that's all there is. Historians still debate how much frontier medicine was based on knowledge versus sheer desperation. Most agree it was at least 70% guesswork and 30% hoping really hard. A cowboy's first aid kit typically included whiskey, a pocket knife, some old rags, and maybe a stick to bite down on. If you were lucky, someone in the group had once met a doctor or claimed they had. That evening, the pain gets worse. You sit by the fire, eyes watering, holding your cheek like you've just been slapped. Someone offers to yank the tooth. He's not a dentist. He's not even sober. He just has a pair of rusty pliers and a can-do attitude. You decline. For now. Instead, you swig from a bottle that tastes like kerosene and regret, and hope the burn numbs your face enough to fall asleep. It doesn't. You wake up in the middle of the night, cheeks swollen, pain stabbing up into your temple. The cows are snoring peacefully. Your horse is asleep, twitching a little. You, on the other hand, are wondering if chewing on a hot coal might be a valid treatment. In the morning, your face looks like you got into a fight with a shovel. One eye is puffy, your jaw barely opens. You manage to drink some coffee by tilting your head like a confused goose. Cookie looks at you and says, "Well, time to yank it." He's holding the pliers again. You stare at the pliers. They're rusted, probably older than you. You try to remember if you updated your will. Then you picture eating beans forever with only half a jaw and Dessa to know, not yet. Instead, someone remembers a remedy passed down from his grandfather, chewing tobacco packed into the cavity. Supposedly, it draws out the infection. It sounds disgusting. You do it anyway. It doesn't work. It also burns your gums, but for a few glorious minutes, the pain dulls, and that's good enough. As the days go on, the pain ebbs and flows. You get used to eating on one side of your mouth. You talk less, grunt more. You even start to bond with a fellow cowboy who lost 3 teeth to bad biscuits and bad luck. He shows you a gap-toothed grin that should be tragic, but is somehow charming. The fringe tidbit for today: some cowboys used to carry chunks of licorice root to chew on as a sort of pain reliever and mouth cleaner. You've never seen one actually do it, but now you're desperate enough to try. Turns out, it tastes like a shoe soaked in sugar water, but your mouth does feel slightly less cursed for a few hours. Meanwhile, the weather turns. A storm brews in the west, dark clouds stacking like angry pancakes on the horizon. Lightning flickers silently, then with a faint crackle. Thunder follows a few seconds later, long and low. You feel it in your chest. The trail boss calls for the herd to bunch up. You ride alongside, jaw aching, watching as the wind picks up and the sky shifts from blue to gray. Rain is coming. You can smell it: wet earth, sagebrush, and that sharp metallic scent just before the downpour. And sure enough, the heavens open. It doesn't just drizzle. It dumps. Within minutes, you're soaked through. Your hat does its best, but soon water is dripping down your back, pooling in your boots. Your horse lowers his head, trudging forward like a martyr. You can't blame him. The ground turns slick. Mud sucks at your boots when you dismount. The cattle moo nervously, slipping, shuffling, uncertain. Everyone's cold, everyone's wet, and now everyone's getting sick. You wake up the next morning with more than just a toothache. Now your throat's scratchy, your nose is running, your head's foggy. You've caught a frontier cold. And guess what the treatment is? That's right. Whiskey. Again. You huddle by the fire, wrapped in a damp blanket, sipping the same burning cure hall, and wondering if anyone's ever died from trying to live out a cowboy fantasy. You sneeze. Your horse snorts. The sky clears just a little. Another day begins, and you still have all your teeth, technically, rewritten to reach 1,200 words. You're not even fully awake when the first clap of thunder hits. It doesn't knock politely, it barrels across the plains like a freight train dipped in brimstone, shaking the very earth beneath your sleeping roll. You jolt upright, heart already racing, brain scrambling to remember what day it is, where you are, and whether or not you're still dreaming. The answer is no. You're wide awake, and the sky's about to punish you for daring to nap. The clouds overhead aren't the fluffy, poetic kind, they're slabs of charcoal stacked from horizon to heaven. Ominous, heavy, moving with intent. They rumble deep and low, like they're clearing their throat before delivering something truly dreadful. The wind's already picked up, tugging at tent flaps and snapping the edges of Cookie's tarp like an angry whip. A few of the horses snort uneasily. Your horse, stubborn, is already wide-eyed, ears back, tail flicking in agitation. Great. Then it hits. Lightning tears through the sky in a jagged white streak, splitting the distance between clouds and prairie like the finger of an impatient god. The crack of thunder follows just 1 second later, which means it struck close, real close, too close. You flinch, throwing off your blanket just in time to see Cookie sit up in his bedroll, blinking like he's still trying to decide whether that was a dream or a divine punishment for overcooking yesterday's beans. Nope. It's very real. You scramble to your feet, boots half on, slipping in the slick grass as the first wave of rain pelts down like gravel. Cold, needle sharp, soaking through your shirt in seconds. You curse under your breath and grab your hat just as it's about to launch into the storm. Everything is wet. Instantly, the ground turns to soup. Your blanket collapses into a mushy heap, and the air is thick with the scent of wet leather, wet horse, and fear. Mount up, the trail boss bellows, voice barely carrying over the roaring wind. You know what's coming. Everyone does. The cows are already moving, slowly at first. Confused, but it won't take much for panic to set in. And when that happens, you'll have another stampede on your hands. You curse again, louder this time, and haul yourself onto your horse, which is already trying to spin in a circle like a carousel with trauma. You grip the reins with rain-slick fingers, dig in your heels, and steer toward the herd. Visibility? Gone. Rain slashes across your face like icy whips. Mud kicks up with every hoofbeat. Lightning flashes again, this time farther off. But the damage is done. The cows are spooked. You ride hard, circling around to the front of the herd. You shout, wave your arms, trying to get them to turn, to mill before they break into a full run. It's chaos shadows moving in the dark, hooves hammering the ground, bellowing, crashing, confusion. You can barely tell which way is up, let alone where the trail is. One cow veers left, charging toward a low ravine. You follow, mud flying up into your face. Your horse stumbles, recovers. You lurch forward in the saddle, grabbing the horn, heart pounding like a war drum. The cow slips on a slick patch of clay, tumbles, gets up, runs the other way. You keep riding. Historians still argue whether cowboys feared rustlers or whether more. The stories often glamorize the shootouts, the duels, the outlaws, but those who lived the life knew the truth. Weather killed more cowboys than any six-gun ever did. Floods, lightning, hailstorms, and wind that could slice through layers of wool and leather like a straight razor. Nature didn't negotiate. It didn't care how tough you were. It just was. The herd finally begins to slow, whether it's your shouting, the wind wearing them down, or dumb luck. You'll never know. You circle them again, tightening the group, calling out to the others, Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the chaos settles into a sluggish shuffle. Mud-caked cows huff and stumble, heads low, miserable but intact. No one died. Not this time. The rain doesn't stop. Hours pass before the wind calms and the clouds begin to break. You dismount, legs trembling, boots filled with brown water, and who knows what. Your clothes are plastered to your skin. Your hat is soaked. Your gloves useless. You've lost feeling in your fingers, and your jaw aches from clenching through the worst of it. And yet you're still upright, which counts as a victory in your book. You ride back to what used to be camp. It now resembles a soggy junk heap. Blankets are half buried in mud. The fire's long out. Cookie's chuck wagon is tilted sideways in a rut. The canvas top shredded by wind. Hez standing beside it, arms crossed, muttering about starting a new life as a librarian. I got beans floating in 3 inches of rainwater. He grumbles. We're having bean broth tonight. Boys. You attempt to laugh, but mostly wheeze. You're shivering now. You peel off your coat and shake it out. It makes a sloshing sound. You try to dry your hat over a relit fire, and it hisses angrily like it resents being revived. Dinner is, in fact, bean broth. Watery, barely warm, but hot enough to thaw your teeth. You sip it in silence with the others, steam curling up into the night air. The sky is clearing. The stars begin to return, blinking softly through the thinning clouds. It would almost be beautiful if your boots didn't weigh 10 pounds each and your bedroll didn't squish when you sat on it. Fringe tidbit of the night, during bad weather, some cowboys used to sleep sitting up in the saddle to stay dry and alert. Others buried themselves under layers of horse blankets and prayed. There was no right answer, only degrees of sogginess. You wring out your socks and lay them by the fire. They smoke slightly, which can't be good. You hang your shirt from a stick. Your boots go upside down, propped up like defeated little chimneys. The fire crackles, spitting occasionally from the damp wood. You curl into your half-dry blanket, more swamp than bed, and watch the stars blink into place above you. A cool breeze slides across your cheek, not sharp now, just a gentle reminder that nature's moods change quickly. Your muscles ache. Your mind is heavy. But the worst of the storm is over. Probably. You close your eyes and whisper, half joking, no hail. Please, yo shit, just no hail. Then you let yourself drift. The mud will be worse tomorrow. The cows will be cranky. But for now, you sleep, wet, cold, and still somehow a cowboy. The morning sun rises like a lee-warm golden and completely disconnected from the misery of the night before. You wake up stiff, muddy, and wrapped in a damp blanket that smells vaguely of beans and wet dog. The fire's burned down to gray coals, and Cookie is already rattling pots, swearing softly as he tries to pry 2 wet tin cups apart with a knife and a prayer. Your boots squelch as you put them on. One of your socks is still damp. The other has given up entirely and is now more whole than fabric. You're tired, sore, and kind of hoping a tumbleweed will roll by and adopt you. But there's work to do, and in the world of cattle drives, no one waits for your laundry to dry or your will to live to return. And then you hear it. Let's ride. Boys, we're behind schedule. That voice, sharp, gravelly, never once softened by kindness or mercy. The cow boss. He's been your boss since the start of the drive, and every day you wake up to the same realization. This man might actually hate joy. His name is Emmiter, maybe Everett. Everyone just calls him boss. He's got a face like old boot leather, a voice like he gargled with sandpaper, and the personality of a taxi audit. He rides through camp like a hawk, inspecting wounded pigeons, eyes squinting for signs of laziness, sloppiness, or, heaven forbid, someone sitting down. You make the mistake of stretching your back and immediately get barked at. You sleep enough. You gonna grow roots? Let's move. You mutter something about working on it and get a glare so sharp it peels paint off the chuck wagon. Historians still debate the leadership styles of trail bosses, some inspired respect, others ruled by fear. Yours seems to believe that motivation comes best in the form of yelling until someone cries or dies. You're not sure which comes first. You mount up, your horse, stubborn, flicks an ear like he can feel the tension too. Even he knows to walk faster when boss is nearby. The day begins with dust and attitude. The cows are already complaining, dragging their hooves through the mud from yesterday's storm. You nudge them forward, hoping they don't pick up on your own lack of enthusiasm. It's hard to inspire cattle when you're mentally calculating how long it would take to crawl to Mexico. The cow boss rides by every hour or so, always watching, always ready to shout if you let a calf wander 2 feet off track or, heaven forbid, pause to adjust your saddle. He criticizes everything. Your riding posture, your hat's angle, even how you chew jerky. You're halfway convinced he could find fault with gravity if given the chance. By midday, the sun is scorching again. Your shirt clings to you like a second skin, sweat-soaked and stiff with salt. The boss calls for a lunch break, but not because he's feeling generous. One of the cows collapsed from heat, and it's the only reason you get a full 5 minutes of shade and lukewarm water. You sit on a rock, sip from your canteen, and stare into the distance while boss lectures a new rider about not holding the reins like your grandma's knitting yarn. The new kid nods so hard his hat nearly flies off. You silently welcome him to the club. Back on the trail. Boss rides beside you for a while, not saying a word. You think maybe, just maybe, he's mellowing. Then he points at a cow limping 20 yards away. You gonna let that steer grow old out here? Or do your job? You sigh, nudge stubborn, and break into a trot, wondering what it's like to be yelled at in your dreams and then wake up to more of the same. Is this what philosophers meant when they talked about purgatory? Fringe fact of the day. Some cowboys nicknamed their bosses the Old Man or the Gray Devil behind their backs, depending on temperament. The bosses, in turn, had their own colorful names for the cowboys, most of which aren't printable. Mutual resentment, another proud Western tradition. Later in the afternoon, the herd comes to a halt. One cow's caught its hoof in a hole, while you and another rider try to work it free. Boss hovers, barking suggestions that are both unhelpful and insulting. You manage to get the cow loose, muddy and limping but upright. The boss says nothing. You think, for a moment, he might actually nod. He does not. He just rides off without a word, leaving you soaked in sweat, covered in cow drool, and contemplating a quiet life in haberdashery. The rest of the day rolls on. The cows shuffle forward. Your legs ache. Your throat's dry. The sun dips low again, and you finally reach the night's still below stretch of scrub, where there's just enough grass for the herd and just enough space for your battered soul to lie down. As you settle by the fire, your ears perk up. Laughter. Boss is telling a story. You glance over, confused. He's got a tin cup in hand and is grinning. Actually grinning. The story is about a time he lost his pants trying to cross a flooded river on a mule, and everyone, including him, is chuckling. You feel like you've just seen a grizzly bear knitting a sweater. Maybe, just maybe, there's a human being under all that gravel and rage, but before you can adjust your opinion, he locks eyes with you across the fire. What are you looking at? Eat your beans, and just like that, the moment's gone. Still, you smile as you shovel spoonfuls of watery beans into your mouth, because deep down, you know, he's hard, mean, crusty, and weirdly, he's the reason this chaos holds together. You lie back, the stars above blinking into view one by one. You sigh, you close your eyes, and from somewhere in the dark, you hear Boss mutter, "Wake up late tomorrow, and I'll hang your boots from the chuck wagon." Comforting. Rewritten to me, 1,000 sounds on 200 words. The fire has long since burned down to a shallow bed of glowing embers, flickering softly like a memory of warmth. You're curled up in your blanket, roll boots still on, hat tugged low over your brow, one hand stuffed under your cheek, the other resting on your canteen like it's some kind of security blanket. The cows are finally quiet. The horses are tied off, dozing, their tails twitching occasionally at invisible ghosts in the wind. And the night, oh, the night is so quiet it almost echoes. No thunder tonight, no stampede, no shouting boss, just the steady sigh of wind dragging itself through the tall grass, and the occasional plop of something unidentifiable dropping near the chuck wagon. The moon is low and full, casting just enough light to make every shadow look like a threat you're too tired to investigate. But it's peaceful, or it should be. Instead, you lie there, still wide awake, heart heavy with a weight you can't quite place. Because as still as the prairie is, your mind is not out here, surrounded by men and animals and noise all day long. The most dangerous moment is when it all stops, when it's just you, the dark, and whatever thoughts come knocking. Tonight, it's loneliness, real, slow burning, deep in your ribs kind of loneliness. It creeps in through the seams of your blanket, wraps around your neck like a scarf made of old regrets. And the weird thing is, you didn't even know you missed anything until you started remembering everything. You roll onto your side and stare out at the cattle-dark lumps in the distance, barely moving. Their occasional grunts and huffs break the silence, but they don't offer company. Not real company. You start to count them, not for the job, but to keep your brain busy. You lose track around 17 and give up. Historians still argue whether the cowboy life was truly solitary or if the tight-knit nature of the cruise filled that void. The romanticized image says cowboys were lone wolves by choice, self-reliant and unbothered. But journals tell a quieter, sadder story of men who laughed loud during the day and lay awake at night wondering if anyone remembered their name back home. You believe the journals, because out here, even when you're surrounded by noise, it's possible to feel like the only person on the planet. You think about your folks. You think about whether your brother ever fixed that roof. You think about the girl you almost asked to marry you, back when you still thought you'd end up with a house, a porch, and maybe a vegetable garden. You think about the letter you meant to write 3 towns ago. You don't even know what you say now. Some cowboys deal with it by keeping journals. Others hum to themselves. One guy on this drive talks to his horse like it's his therapist. You tried that once. Your horse just farted and walked away. So you lie there, letting your thoughts unspool like a dropped lasso. You remember the way your mother's kitchen smelled when she was baking. You remember the sound of frogs at night from the little creek behind your childhood home. You remember a birthday you spent alone in a saloon in Dodge City. Nobody knew, and you didn't tell them. What would have been the point? You roll onto your back and stare at the sky. The stars out here are something else. You've never seen so many. They stretch in every direction, layered and dense, like someone scattered diamonds across a velvet blanket and left them there for you to stare at when you couldn't sleep. They don't twinkle like people say, they burn, cold and hard and distant. You pick out the constellations you remember: Orion, the Big Dipper, maybe that one's Cassiopeia, or maybe it's just a group of stars that kind of look like a chair. You're no astronomer. You just know they've been watching over this land long before you got here, and they'll still be shining long after you ride your last trail. A coyote howls in the distance, high, lonesome, like it's calling out to someone who won't ever answer. Another joins in, then another. Before long, the whole hillside sounds like it's singing the saddest song ever written, and you feel it, that kinship, that shared ache. You whisper, "Yeah, I hear you too," and pull your blanket tighter around your shoulders. Fringe tidbit of the night. Some cowboys swore by singing to themselves softly at night to keep the loneliness away. Old folk tunes, made up songs, even church hymns. Others carried harmonicas or tin whistles. They weren't entertainers, they were just trying to fill the silence before it swallowed them whole. You hum a few bars of something you can't quite name, a tune your mother used to sing when you were small enough to be rocked to sleep. It comes out shaky, but soft. And for a moment, it helps. Eventually, you do drift off. Not all the way, just enough. Light sleep, the kind where you're half aware of every cow movement, every shifting hoof, every branch creaking in the breeze. You don't dream, or if you do, the dreams are quiet. No sound, just soft images of home, firelight. Maybe the girl who got away. You wake just before dawn. The air is crisp. The sky is still black, but beginning to blush with the first hints of light. Your face is cold, your knees ache, and your blanket is now more dust than fabric. You sit up slowly, stretch your arms, and yawn so wide your jaw pops. Another day begins. You pour the last few drops of lukewarm water from your canteen into your mouth, swish it around like it's fine wine, and swallow. Your stomach growls, your bones creak. You glance at your saddle and sigh. Your horse lifts his head and snorts, like he's already judging how slowly you're moving. "Don't start," you mutter. "I'm getting up." You pack your blanket, you tie your gear, you mount your horse, and as the sun breaks over the edge of the world, turning the dust gold and the sky pink, you ride forward again, quiet, sore, and still a little alone, but not entirely. Because out here, loneliness isn't something you cure. It's just something you carry. And cowboys? We get good at carrying things. The day begins like every other, dusty, creaky, and laced with cow smell. You're in the saddle before your brain fully catches up, rubbing the sleep from your eyes with one hand and holding the reins with the other. The sun hasn't even cleared the horizon, but the cattle are already lowing. Your horse is already giving you attitude, and Cookie's got something boiling that smells like regret and old onions. You stretch your back until it pops. You squint at the trail ahead, and as the herd begins to move, kicking up that ever-present cloud of dirt and dung, a thought sneaks into your mind, a heavy one, the kind that's been circling for days. You might die out here. Not in a dramatic blaze of glory, shootout at high noon kind of way. No. More like falling off your horse and landing wrong, or getting kicked in the ribs by a startled calf, or coming down with a fever in the middle of nowhere, miles from anyone who knows what to do besides pour whiskey on it and mutter something about strong constitution. You take a sip from your canteen. It's warm. Of course it's warm. You sigh and shift in the saddle, bones aching already, and the day hasn't even started baking yet. They don't pay you much for this life, around $30 a month, if the boss remembers, and if he doesn't dock you for sleeping too long or letting a cow look at you funny. That's $1 a day. Maybe less if you count what you've lost to busted gear, ruined socks, and that time you paid a whole nickel for a moldy apple in a dusty town. Historians still argue about the actual pay of cowboys. Some say they were reasonably compensated for the time. Others claim they were little better off than sharecroppers, scraping by with just enough to buy another pair of boots before the next drive. What everyone agrees on, they earned every cent with sweat, blood, and more blisters than a foot should legally be allowed to have. You watch the herd trudge forward. You've memorized the shape of certain cows by now. That one with the crooked horn. The one that limps a little but still walks with the stubbornness of a king. These animals aren't your friends, but they're your responsibility. If one of them dies on your watch, you don't just lose cattle, you lose pay. And possibly teeth, depending on the boss's mood. The sun climbs higher. The heat sets in like an old debt collector, heavy and unforgiving. Your shirt sticks to your back. Your hat's soaked through with sweat. Your lips are cracked. You try to whistle and end up spitting dust. You remember reading about knights in armor once, brave men on noble steeds. This is not that. Your armor's a threadbare shirt. Your noble steed has a gas problem. And your dragon is a herd of stubborn, slow-moving beef. At midday, you get a short break. Not to rest or no, just to check hooves, inspect saddles, and rub your cramping legs. You sit on a rock and chew a piece of jerky that tastes like it might be older than you. You swallow with effort and glance at the others. They look just like you, hollow-eyed, dirt-smeared, quiet. Some are in their 20s. Others look older, though they might not be. Out here, the sun carves lines into your face faster than time. You see hands with calluses thick as bark, eyes that have stared into too many storms, men who don't speak unless they have to, because words take energy, and energy is rationed. One guy slim starts coughing. Not the kind of cough you get from dust, the kind that comes from somewhere deeper. He waves off help, but you all hear it. That rasp, that heaviness. You've heard it before. Last time it ended with a shallow grave near the Pecos River and a quiet ride the next morning like he'd never existed. You wonder, idly, who would know if you didn't make it back? Would anyone write your name down? Would there be a marker? Or would the next guy just take your place? Wear your boots? Ride your horse? Some men carve their names into trees as they go little slashes of, "I was here" in the bark. You think about doing the same, maybe later. You remount. The sun's still rising. The cows are still walking. You think about your $30 and what it actually buys. A few meals, a drink in a saloon, a new shirt if you're lucky. Definitely not safety. Definitely not glory. Fringe fact of the day. Some cowboys would gamble away their entire month's pay the night they got it. Others sent it straight home to their families, never spending a dime. You suspect you'll be somewhere in the middle buying socks and a bottle, then pretending you don't regret it. As evening sets in, you notice a buzzard circling overhead. It's just doing what it does, waiting. But still, it sends a shiver up your spine. You spit into the dust and mutter, "Not today." The campfire crackles weakly. You're eating beans again? You barely taste them anymore? You're too tired. Cookie tells a story about a cowboy who died of thirst 20 miles from a creek. No one laughs. Not tonight. You lie down under the stars. Your blanket rough and familiar. The sky's full of stars, but they don't comfort you tonight. You feel small, not in a poetic way, in a real gut level way that makes you wonder how much longer you'll keep riding this trail. And then, just as your eyes start to drift shut, you hear a soft voice nearby. Hey, someone whispers, if I don't make it back, tell my sister I tried. You don't know what to say. You nod. He nods. That's enough. You close your eyes. This isn't a movie. There's no music, no heroes send off. Out here, people vanish like dust in the wind, and the trail keeps going, and tomorrow, you ride again. The next morning, you wake with a start, jolted from a dreamless sleep by a sound that's almost worse than thunder. The unmistakable clunk of someone breaking wind in their bedroll. You don't open your eyes. You just groan. Another day begins on the range. Your blanket is stiff with dew, and your knees protest as you try to sit up. You stretch your arms, bad idea. Your shoulders feel like someone took a branding iron to them overnight. Your spine pops. Twice. You grunt again, then fumble for your hat, which is covered in dust and possibly the footprint of a passing raccoon. You stand up slow, like an old barn creaking in the wind, and hobble over to the fire where Cookie is already cooking something that smells like charcoal-flavored disappointment. You nod to him. He nods back. No one speaks before coffee. It's an unspoken rule, possibly divine law. You wrap your hands around a steaming tin cup, the liquid inside hot and vaguely brown. You sip. It's mostly grit, with a whisper of burned wood and a kick of bitterness that tells you Cookie might have used yesterday's grounds again. But you drink it anyway, because it's warm, and warm things are rare. Then comes the gear check. Every morning, like clockwork. First the saddle. The leather's cracked in a few places, and one of the stirrups creaks like it's considering retirement. You oil it best you can and re-knot the straps with hands that feel more like sandpaper than skin. Your fingers are swollen, your palms raw from rope burn, and there's something under your fingernails that looks suspiciously like old jerky. Next, the bedroll. You shake it out. Watch a few unidentifiable bugs scurry away and roll it up tight. Then your rifle wiped down, checked, rewrapped in its cover. You haven't had to use it lately, but it's the kind of tool you never want to realize you neglected in the middle of a crisis. And finally, your clothes. They tell a story your journal never could. Your shirt was once blue. Maybe. Now it's the color of old dishwater, streaked with sweat and saddle wax. Your pants are stiff enough to stand on their own, and your socks swell. Let's just say your toes have learned to get creative with the ventilation. You buckle on your chaps, strap on your gun belt, and tip your hat. Voila. You're a cowboy again. But no part of your outfit is more important or more cursed than your boots. They're heavy. They're cracked. They're too tight in some places and too loose in others. They've been wet, dry, caked in mud, covered in blood, mostly cow, and stomped on by more hooves than you care to count. They were probably made for someone else. You've broken them in. They've broken you back. Historians often romanticize cowboy gear, wide-brimmed hats, rugged coats, shining spurs, but the reality is that most of it was uncomfortable at best and painful at worst. Function came first. Fashion came never. You remember one cowboy from earlier in the drive who had a brand new pair of boots, fancy ones, pointed toes, tooled leather, shiny buckles. Everyone was jealous. For a day. Then he got a blister the size of a silver dollar. And by the third day, he was hobbling like he'd been shot. He swapped those pretty boots for a busted old pair from a retired drover and never looked back. Your spurs jingle faintly as you walk. They're not for show. They're dull and half rusted, barely holding on to the strap, but they do the job. You glance down and realize one of them's missing a rowel. You'll fix it later. Maybe. You check your bandana, it still smells like smoke and old bacon, but it'll keep the dust out of your teeth. Kind of. You adjust your hat to block the sun. Doesn't matter how you angle it somehow. The sun always finds your face. Fringe fact of the day. Cowboy hats weren't just fashion, they were tools. You used them to scoop water, fan a fire, swat flies, even wave down help. They were your shade, your pillow, your umbrella, and occasionally your napkin. Lose your hat, and you might as well lie down and wait for the buzzards. Once you're geared up, you mount your horse. The saddle creaks. Your knees ache. Your thighs scream. But you don't say anything. You just ride. The morning drags on. Cows moo. Flies buzz. You find yourself thinking about things you didn't expect to care about, like whether socks could ever be made from clouds, or how many more weeks it'll take before your shirt officially qualifies as a biohazard. Around noon, you pause for a quick break beneath a mesquite tree. You lean back, letting the saddle dig into your spine. A breeze drifts past. It's hot, but it carries the faint scent of sage and dust, and for just a moment, you feel a flicker of peace. Then something sharp crawls up your pant leg. You jump up, shake your leg like you're dancing, and curse whatever god made scorpions. Better check your drawers next time, another cowboy says, not looking up from his jerky. You scowl, brush yourself off, and sit back down. Slowly. Later that day, you catch a glance of yourself in the reflection of a shallow water trough. You hardly recognize the person staring back. Sunburned, gaunt, tired in the bones. But there's something else there too, something solid. A person who survived storms, dust, long nights, busted ribs, and worse. A person held together by leather, coffee, and sheer spite. You nod to your reflection. He nods back. As the sun begins to set, the sky turns the color of rust and fire. You ride beside the herd, watching their shapes stretch long across the ground. Your gear squeaks with every motion, your boots pinch, your back protests, but you keep riding. You don't do it for the pay, or the glory, or even the adventure. You do it because this is the life you chose. No refunds, no guarantees, just dust, leather, and the open trail. The herd moves slow tonight. Not sluggish exactly, just tired. Like they've finally accepted the futility of trying to resist this dusty march westward. You get it. You feel the same way. Every hoofstep feels like one more sigh pressed into the earth. The sun's dipped low behind the hills, painting the sky in streaks of rose and copper, and everything is bathed in that golden, end-of-day hush. Your horse plods beneath you, rhythm steady, tail swishing lazily. You're barely guiding him anymore. After all these miles, he knows the drill. You hold the reins loose in one hand, letting your wrist rest on the saddle horn. Eyes half closed. Your body aches, but in that oddly comforting way where the pain has settled into something familiar. It's part of the routine now, like beans and dust. And, somewhere out there, the trail ends. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. There's a rumor in camp that the drive's almost over. A few more days, they say. Maybe a week if weather holds. The whispers passed around over weak coffee and stronger complaints. One more river, someone muttered this morning. Just one more. You don't let yourself believe it yet. Cowboys are full of talk, and optimism's been in short supply since the last town. Still, you let yourself picture it. You imagine riding into the final railhead, that burst of relief when the last cows counted, the herd sold off, and someone hands you 30 crumpled dollars like it's the answer to all your problems. Maybe there's a bath waiting, a soft bed, maybe even a bottle of something that doesn't taste like varnish and rage. You picture walking into a quiet saloon, no music playing, just the clink of glasses and tired laughter. You imagine sitting down, pulling off your boots slowly, carefully, as if peeling off years instead of leather, and finally just breathing. But you don't linger there too long, because first, there's tonight. And tonight, like every night, you've got cows to watch and a bedroll to climb into. The sky's going navy now, stars poking through like shy little eyes blinking awake. Someone starts singing near the fire soft and low. An old tune. Familiar, even if the words are different. You don't know who's singing. Doesn't matter. The voice blends with the crickets and the rustling grass, weaving a kind of lullaby for the whole camp. You dismount, boots hitting the earth with a thud. Your knees wobble, but you stay upright. You lead your horse over to the picket line, stroke his neck, whisper a half thank you into his ear. He doesn't react, has too busy trying to chew through the world one stalk of grass at a time. You grab your blanket roll still dusty, still stiff, and find your usual patch of ground. It's flatter than most and only smells faintly of manure. You lower yourself onto it like a man twice your age, groaning as your back settles into the cold, hard earth. The stars wheel overhead, blinking in patterns you don't bother deciphering anymore. You're too tired, too worn. Your hat tips down over your eyes. You cross your arms over your chest and exhale. Another day survived. Another day closer. And then, just as sleep starts to pull you under, it hits you. This is it. The end of the trail, the end of the drive. Not just the cows, but you too. You've changed. Out here in the dust and wind and silence, something in you shifted, hardened, maybe, or softened, or just settled. You came out here to do a job, and you did it. Through storms, through stampedes, through loneliness that cut sharper than a knife. You endured. And now, you're not just a guy in a hat on a horse. You're something else. Something tougher. Something real. And that's worth something. Fringe tidbit for the finale, when the drive ended. Many cowboys didn't celebrate. They just packed up, rode off, and found the next herd. Because the trail never really ends. Not for them. Not for you. So as the fire dies and the world quiets again, you let yourself relax. Not all the way. Just enough. Because tomorrow, maybe, the road ends. Or maybe it just turns. Either way, you'll ride. And now, with the trail behind you, and the dust finally starting to settle, your mind drifts like a lazy cloud across a soft evening sky. Your body relaxes into the earth, no longer resisting, no longer bracing. The ache in your legs is still there, but it's quiet now, like an old companion who no longer needs to speak. Your shoulders let go of the weight they've carried for weeks. Your hands rest gently across your chest, fingers curled around nothing in particular. The fire has burned down to embers, glowing warm against the cool night. Above you, the stars hum silently in their silver chorus, spreading calm across the land like soft wool over tired bones. You breathe in, deep and slow, the smell of sage, smoke, and faint leather fills your lungs. You exhale even slower. Around you, the camp has gone still. No one's speaking, no one's snoring just yet. Just the sound of distant cow breath and the shifting rhythm of the wind brushing through the dry grass. It rocks you, almost like a cradle, almost like the earth itself is saying, "You did it. You made it." Your horse is quiet now, just a dark shape, dozing peacefully, and your thoughts, those restless wanderers, finally begin to fade. No more riding, no more worrying. Just this moment of quiet. Simple. Earned. You let go, and the last thing you hear before sleep takes you completely is your own breath slow and even joining the rhythm of the range. Good night, cowboy. End of story. Sweet dreams.